All right, everybody. As you guys know, Donald Trump, the nightmare that may potentially become president again at the end of this year, well, he's in a lot of legal trouble right now. And we're kind of teetering on the edge of, will Donald Trump be let off the hook for most of it, besides the stuff he did when he was not the president, because of a decision made by the Supreme Court and financial contributions made by the oil lobby that were promised in exchange for Trump, or that were given in exchange for Trump promising to axe all of Biden's climate policies that he's passed if Trump gets reelected. In exchange, the oil lobby has given Trump $1 billion to pay off legal fees and pay for his campaign. He, invited a bunch of the main oil executives to Mar-a-Lago, and they had, a big shady deal around the table. It was quite wild. Anyway, Donald Trump's in a lot of shit, so he's kind of wavering on either being completely fucked or let off the hook right now. It's like a seesaw that's, way, sort of tilting back and forth either which way, right? And, as it would seem, for a long time, despite all the evidence and constant, pattern of Trump breaking the law and having to go to court for it, and having Fall Guys take the punishment for it, people just kind of defaulted to the idea that Trump must be innocent because he's Teflon Don, nothing ever sticks to him, and if they really had something, then they would have gotten him by now. That kind of line of logic. Surely if he was really guilty, they would have gotten him by now. It's not like rich, powerful people like him get away with, doing illegal shit all the time. That's against the best interests of the American people. That never happens. He must just be innocent. No. As it turns out, despite years of people seemingly viewing Trump's legal troubles as actually a good thing for him and it resulting in an increase in his favorability, it would seem that the most recent polling is having the opposite effect. For the first time, Donald Trump, the majority of Americans think that Donald Trump is guilty of a crime. That may sound like a crazy stat to you, but it's true. This is the first time the majority of Americans have believed Trump is guilty of a crime. Really gives you a little bit of perspective on, how deranged Americans are about, Donald Trump's moral, position. That, up until now, Americans had a really, really charitable view of him.
Exactly 1 month into Donald Trump's trial, there is new polling that finds for the first time the majority of Americans believe the former president is guilty. In the latest Yahoo News...
How insane is it that this is the first time the majority of Americans have ever held this opinion? It's taken this long. Guys, you need to understand, the average American voter is genuinely retarded. You need to understand that if you knew how retarded they are, you would be depressed right now. You would need to go see a therapist to just vent about your frustrations with the future of this country's, political landscape. You might even feel... No, I'm not going too far with this bit, but yes, you know exactly what I mean, right? It's bad, dude. Hold on, can I found it. I saw a TikTok today. Holy shit. I saw a TikTok today that I need to show you guys, or a YouTube short. Undecided. Nope. Oh, here it is.
My name's Bob Cheeseward.
Yeah, okay. It's called Everybody Wants a Piece of the Cheese. That's why.
And I am a swing state undecided voter. Every 4 years, I get a lot of gifts. Box of nuts from the Republican National Convention. Geez, that's nice. Nintendo Switch, got this from the Vatican. Cutting knives from the Tijuana cartel. Boy, did they have a message for me. Everybody's trying to get a piece of the cheese. My last name's Cheeseward. I've always been indecisive. Ever since I was a kid. It's so hard to choose.
Well, you're just gonna have to pick one.
It's like nuts a million. My wife, Peggy, she is a decided voter, so they don't really give her as many gifts or anything.
Bob, Congressman Emer's calling for you.
No, I'm not 100% sure yet who I'm gonna vote for. Well, I just can't quite decide. It turns out that my vote carries 7,000 times as much weight as your average American. And, I'm not even,
Smart.
Right, yeah. I'm about as sharp as an almond. I think everybody would love to see Trump and Biden going into the same office. Wouldn't that be a dream come true? My name's Bob.
this is a real stereotype, okay? This guy is 100% real. This is obviously a bit, like, this was acted out and a bit done. But that guy is real, okay? And that bit about, like, my vote matters, like, 7,000 times more than the average American is very accurate as well. A scary amount of the vote is decided by people who are just, who could go any way. They're unpredictable. They might not vote. They might vote for Trump. They might vote for Biden. It's impossible to guess because they're really just that, they're undecided till, like, the day of the election.
News YouGov national poll, 52% of adults say Trump did indeed falsify business records to conceal hush money payments to a porn star. That is up 4 points from last month and up 7 points from when the charges were filed last year. If convicted, 51% would approve of Trump serving prison time, while 36% would be against putting him behind bars.
Willie, look at that. 51% would support Donald Trump. So I guess this isn't a far left-wing conspiracy.
No, that's a majority of Americans.
Yeah, that would be.
It's not even, it's only 36% of Americans that disapprove of Trump being found guilty and being sentenced to jail. Like, there's a margin of Americans who are like middle road, but the majority of Americans approve of it. Well, it is a non-significant minority of Americans who disapprove of Trump so much, or approve of Trump so much, they think that he's innocent and shouldn't go to jail. That's that tells me Biden's chances are better than we're thinking.
Again, I went to Alabama. 51, that's a majority.
Yeah,
right?
Once you get to 51.
Yes. Okay. Joyce confirmed.
Okay.
He was being sarcastic. He was saying this is clearly not like a left-wing conspiracy theory like the right is claiming. It's the majority of Americans believe he is guilty. So yeah, he was being sarcastic. He wasn't claiming that there was like a left-wing conspiracy theory. Yeah.
Okay.
As for the political ramifications, the poll shows Trump and President Joe Biden tied at 45% in this year's election.
God, I once again, though, the polling has always been inaccurate. I know this is like, I sound like a broken record here, but the polling has almost always been inaccurate. The polling favored Trump when Biden won anyway, in 2020. The polling favored Hillary when Trump won anyway in 2016. The polling almost feels like, it almost feels like it's better to assume the opposite of the polling will be true coming into the election than to use it as a good gauge of like who's going to win. Like it's almost like here's who's not going to win, you know? At least the last few elections, it feels that way.
Among registered voters. But when asked who they would support if convicted, if Trump is convicted
well, that's not close.
in the hush money case, Biden takes a 7-point lead, 46 to 39%. So can I look at some other polling?
Yeah,
now?
why not?
The latest morning consult tracking poll over 10,000 registered voters finds 44% for Trump and 43% for Biden. That's within the poll's margin of error.
It's not 12 points. It's a tie. Okay.
And separate new polling of registered voters finds President Joe Biden leading Donald Trump. In this survey from the New York Times and Ipsos, Biden is up 4 points.
Isn't it interesting how, like, you switch between different pollings and it's all neck and neck, but it switches between Trump and Biden, like who's in the lead, though Biden typically seems to be the one holding the most frequent lead? We're going to have to see what happens. The polling is so inconsistent right now across organizations. It feels like you take any sample population from, like, even 2 neighborhoods over from each other, and you're going to get vastly different results.
Points, 47 to 43%. We should note, though, that the margin of error is plus or minus 6% for the poll.
So I get to say it's fascinating, Willie, and we'll get into this. The New York Times ran a few polls. They ran the New York Times Siena poll, which they roll off, it's a series, 15, 16, 17 stories that make people run around Manhattan with their hair on fire and Washington with their hair on fire. At the same, put this New York Times Ipsos poll.
The Ipsos.
Put it back. Okay. Run at the same time by the New York Times. Biden's ahead by 4 points nationally. 4 points nationally. Not even an article about it. Anyway.
That's true. That's true. Remember, guys, Biden doesn't sell. If you're a political media pundit, Biden doesn't sell. He's just a good president who's like not super exciting, and he doesn't sell. Praising him doesn't sell, and the most you can really do is criticize him if you want to sell anything on him. Like, when I say sell, I mean like have people consume the media you're producing and make some sort of profit from that, right? To give you a good idea of this, Biden takes office, news agency viewership plummets. This happened on YouTube. It happened on TV. It happened on social media sites. Every single source through which people got their news on like media or like got their news about politics, everything on every outlet took a dive. The right less so, obviously, but especially so mainstream and even alternative left-wing outlets, right? Like if you haven't noticed, like most left-wing content creators across the board right now have stagnated. I mean, I gained subs a bit, but even I have pretty much stagnated, mostly because of the Keffels drama than anything else. But if I was larger, I will have probably hit the cap as well of where it seems like lefty content creators can be. And a large part of that is that Biden does not motivate apolitical people to get into left-wing politics. His presidency just doesn't. He's just doing a decent job, and he's not very exciting. His presidency at most encourages people to get into the right because there's a lot of content criticizing him exclusively from the right. You know what I mean? And so to give you an idea of what I'm talking about here, TV news ratings, online readership plunged during Biden's first 100 days. This is just during the first 100 days of his presidency. Broadcast and cable news ratings, along with website traffic, are all taking a hit in the post-Trump era. During President Biden's first 100 days in office, weekly full-day cable ratings for CNN and MSNBC have been trending down, according to statistics from ratings company Nielsen. On average, 1.3 million household viewers were watching MSNBC in the last week of January, shortly after Biden took office. For the week ending April 25th, just a couple months later, the number was 868,000, and it continued to plummet. At CNN, those figures went from 1.2 million to 749,000. It goes on, by the way. Every single political outlet was hurt financially by Biden taking office. So when you see a lefty account advocating for you not to vote Biden, know that they took that hit too, and they want to see their revenue go back up into the green again like it did when Trump was president. No one like Second Thought ever talk about the NLRB victories or anything to do with unions and workers. You know what Second Thought does talk about, though? Second Thought has a second YouTube channel where he reviews supercars. Did you guys know that? I think his most recent one was he was reviewing a McLaren, driving around and reviewing a McLaren. Tankies are massively materialistic and love expensive clothes, big houses, and cars. And expensive cars. And drip. Does he review the Cybertruck? I wouldn't be surprised if he buys one because, well, you know, I have to have one to review it, you know? We'll see. Yeah, they're champagne socialists. Ironically enough, like, I don't even believe that you have to... I don't even believe that you have to be broke to be a good socialist, but... I am still broke. I live the most socialist lifestyle. I'm not really broke, but like in comparison, I'm broke. To Hassan or Second Thought, for sure. But regardless, this polling it makes me happy. It makes me happy. I'm fine taking the hit of another 4 years of Biden if it means we don't die because of climate change, among other things, you know? We wouldn't die because of climate change, but a lot of people would.
As for that New York Times Philadelphia Inquirer Siena College polling of 6 key battleground states that came out Monday morning, there was a lot of reaction to that. As we know, some of the most trusted pollsters in the country are calling into question the methodology and results.
You think?
The CEO of the Nevada Independent, John Ralston.
The Trump supporters are huffing the copium. That's how you know the fact they're denying it. That's how you know it's scaring them. A big part of Trump's rise to power was centered on an appeal to popularity. remember, a lot of conservatism is a club, a train of hype that you want to be on board of, unless otherwise you're going to be missing out. And not only missing out, you might even be the target of that train to run over next. And a lot of it's just like, join the troll train so we can like upset people and get funny reactions from them. And like we can have our guy in office, our meme guy. So yeah, with the fact that they feel the need to like cover this up and try to argue that actually Trump is very popular. If you're just looking to be on the popular side, you want to vote Trump. Then obviously they're going to try to cover that up. Also, remember, they do all of this rhetoric, all the while saying the election is rigged. They all say, and supposedly believe, truly, that the election is rigged and Trump can't win because Biden will steal and has stolen the election. And yet they encourage you to vote as much as possible. And their justification is, well, if you vote as much for Trump as possible, it makes it harder for them to rig it. And if everybody votes for Trump and Biden still wins, then we know it was rigged and the people will revolt. It's like, okay, whatever, man. They know that it's not a rigged election and that if they can get enough people to vote for Trump, then he'll win. But he didn't get enough votes and they're just huffing copium. They're huffing copium on this, just like they were huffing copium when they claimed that the election was rigged.
Calls Trump having a 13-point lead in the state, quote, bizarre, adding that nothing remotely similar has been seen in the state in decades. The founder of UVA's Center for Politics, Larry Sabato, says he laughed after seeing the Nevada numbers and recommends others do the same.
I hope these like quotes end up aging the same way as Tim Pool's 49 state red Trump landslide quotes. Do you guys remember that? Like, I really think we're going to see a 49 state Trump landslide. It kept escalating from 40 to 49 state. And I think he eventually got to 50 state landslide, like right before the election. He said like outright, I'm calling it now. I'm seeing a 50 state landslide for Donald Trump. As if like California and New York would swing to Trump or something. Colorado. Yeah, imagine red California. Fucking wild, dude. Like, people take that guy seriously and pay him millions of dollars a year to keep, like, spewing retardation in their ears.
National political reporter at The Bulwark, Mark Caputo, also calls the Nevada poll, quote, a total outlier. Meanwhile, the director of polling at Harvard's Institute of Politics, John Della Volpe, is raising questions about how Biden could be losing the youth vote by 27 points in Michigan while winning it by 24 points in Wisconsin.
A million monkeys with a million
I think there are a lot of
cell phones
here.
making calls as pollsters.
Okay.
That's how you do it.
Finally, the New Republic's Greg Sargent expressed dismay at the survey's methodology. This is important, which shows 20% of the likely voters polled.
Isn't it interesting how Twitter has essentially become a platform for conservative pundits to be able to guarantee, like, have a platform and make money off of their lies? Like, Elon Musk basically bought the platform and turned it into, like, a refuge where no matter what, it'll be, like, an alt platform for, like, weirdo right-wingers to post child porn and shit. Child porn included, by the way. I'm not making that bit up. Elon Musk personally unbanned that Dom Lucre guy who posted like violent, like snuff film child porn shit on Twitter. I don't know exactly the details, but it was apparently violent and CP. Posted that on Twitter and then got banned because the mod team did their job, thankfully. Apparently it's called Daisy's Destruction. I don't know what that is or why it has a name, but if you know what that means, then I guess you know what that means. I guess posted that to own the libs and then got banned for it because the mod team did their job and then complained about it. His fan base, the right-wingers, complained about it. And Elon Musk then personally, and I'll show you guys the screenshots, unbanned the guy. Elon unbans Dom Lucre. Oh yeah, this is from Vice. Elon Musk welcomes child sex abuse imagery poster back to Twitter. Yeah, Elon Musk cheesing in the headline. Elon Musk reinstated a QAnon-promoting far-right Twitter account that posted child abuse imagery, even though his company policy explicitly states that's not allowed. On Wednesday, Musk tweeted the company would reinstate the account of the notorious far-right troll known as Dom Lucre. Lucre's account was banned on Wednesday, literally that week, by the way, after he had posted child exploitation images 4 days previously. 4 days later. For now, we will delete those posts and reinstate the account, Musk tweeted in response to another account questioning why Twitter had deleted the account. I'm told that this account was suspended for posting child exploitation pictures associated with the criminal conviction of an Australian man in the Philippines, Musk tweeted. The offending post referenced an assistant to Peter Scully, the Australian man who was sentenced last year to 129 years in prison for sexually abusing children as young as 18 months. Along with the link to an article about the assistant, the account posted 2 screenshots from a video Sully created on the dark web, which Lucre said showed a 1-year-old named Daisy. On Wednesday, 4 days after the images were posted, Musk claimed that only people on our child exploitation team have seen those pictures. Yes, the team of people who have, maybe 18 months left to live before they kill themselves. I don't know if you guys know, but every single social media platform that's worth its salt has a team of people who are forced to just scroll through reports of child porn all day and ban the accounts. So they get up in the morning, they go to work, they look at gore and child porn all day that they have to moderate and ban because someone has to see it. And those people are oh my God, the amount of if they're really mentally fucked up. They have possibly one of the worst jobs you can have. Their brains, their mental health is notoriously bad. It's up there with dentists and air traffic controller, if you know what I'm talking about. It's bad.
Either didn't vote in the last 2 midterms.
Wait a second. Wait a second.
Vote.
They're likely voters.
But they did not vote.
The 20% of what the New York Times is calling likely voters.
So let me finish.
Didn't vote in the last general election or the last 2 midterms.
And didn't vote in the last general election or the last 2 midterms, or they have never voted at all.
But wait, John Heilman, there's more. And by the way, people calling and going, oh, this is just a reaction to one poll. No, you can go back. You can look at the tape. We do this every time a New York Times Siena poll comes out. It's always an outlier. And the New York Times always gets 15 or 16 articles out of them that everybody rushes to because it says Earth ends at 5 o'clock. Go hit link at New York.
Yeah, I will say the polling going back 3 elections now from New York Times has been very hard leaning in one way or the other more than any other poll when others will show things looking a little more neck and neck. And they seem to be more they're just more decisive, which is never you can never call it that decisively that early. It's who are you polling? What are your selection groups? I don't know. Maybe this is bad data.
15 times, and they keep writing articles about it. There are, and NPR has found some of these voters that said, well, I voted for Biden before, and they said, but wait, this guy, we checked the voting rolls. He's never voted.
Did you guys know NPR is one of the most oil-lobbied news media organizations there are? Just period. Yeah, 538 seems to be the most on track with things. Did you guys know that NPR takes close to as much oil money as Fox? It's actually crazy. NPR is legitimately bought out by big oil.
Other news organizations have 3, 4 more examples.
Yeah.
Not just of people in the surveys, but people the New York Times quoted in their articles of, well, here's one of many people that we interviewed that said he's disillusioned and is going to vote for Trump. No record of them voting.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you feeling something?
Well, I'm feeling that there's
say?
I think sometimes, as a general matter, there's maybe a little bit of an over-reliance on voters telling the truth about things in general. Hate to say it. Reporters find this occasionally that reporters lie. Here's what I'd say about this poll. If I were to ask you this question, Jeff, do you know anybody on either side who who doesn't think that it's the case that of the battleground states that Joe Biden is stronger in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin than he is in Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia.
It sounds about right. I've seen some polls that show that Georgia is very close. Greg Bluestein actually had an article.
It's very possible we get Georgia again. I mean, like, you got to remember that a good portion of Georgia's population are people in Atlanta, and a good portion of people in Atlanta aren't even white, which is immediately predisposing to voting Democrat automatically, because the Republican Party is the party of racism, and non-white people in this country know that, like, pretty generally across the board. So I don't know. For all we know, we're going to see another Georgia. Like, we very well could. Atlanta is a big fucking city. It's getting bigger, and its population is growing. And Atlanta is, I'm pretty certain, why we got Georgia in the first place. 95% chance we get another blue Georgia? You really think it's that high? I don't know if it's that high. Not to mention, Atlanta, Georgia has multiple colleges. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know there's ATL, right? Like ATL or whatever, just like at Atlanta University, ALT, I don't know. I know that they've got that. Is there not another one in Atlanta as well? Emory and Georgia Tech? Yeah, there's a few smaller ones too. Or not smaller, but you know what I mean. And Georgia State, yeah, the state colleges. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of colleges in Atlanta. That's like a high concentration of young voting age, hopefully they vote, people. Hopefully, listen, I get that, like I feel like the non-voting college student is very much like a California, New York thing. But the, like, highly politically motivated to get out there and fucking vote college student, that's a Florida or a Georgia or an Alabama thing. Because if you live in the deep South, you know how much that your activism, your vote actually matters. Like, you want to try and fight against that, like, hard red you see on the map of your state. That's what I think.
I'm not saying it's not close.
Texas too. And a good example is local elections, right? Look at local elections. Look at places like Galveston and Austin, Texas. These are hard red. This is a hard red state, but these are very blue cities in a hard red state. That's because the local people in these, like, bigger cities where they have, like, a more progressive population, they fucking vote, and they create, like, patches of relatively not insane Texas.
Is wildly off.
I'm not saying it's not close. I'm not going to carry water for the New York Times or for the methodology of this poll. I'll keep going back to a thing that I try to say every time we talk about these things, which is that I'm really interested, and I know you know this, is like, what are the polls telling us directionally about the race?
I understand. There's a difference, though, with the New York Times Siena poll, and you know this. It's given disproportionate impact.
I think this guy's being a little unhinged. I think this guy's making a good point. All the polling across the board seems to suggest a directional move towards favorability of Biden by the American people, which is kind of what I expected and what I think a lot of people expected as the election gets closer and it all gets more real. And the question of, like, do you really want to go? You remember Trump, right? Do you really want to go back to 4 years of that? Like, really think about it. The American people said no about that in 2020. The American people said no to Trump in 2020. Do we really think the American people are going to say, never mind, we liked you, come back in 2024? I don't know. If anything, I feel like Trump has a total of less supporters now than he did in 2016 and 2020. I really think so. 2020 is not remembered as a good year. Most of the years Trump was president are not remembered as good years. 2016 to 2020 are not remembered as a good time by most people.
This year, this side.
The economy was okay, but that's pretty much it.
It is skewed wildly in Donald Trump's direction. Hold on.
Yeah.
And the New York Times feasts on it with clickbait stories like a dozen at a time.
And what I'm trying to focus on is what I think people should pay attention to.
But what I'm trying to focus on is the New York Times right now is actively shaping the election cycles where this poll comes out on a Sunday and on Monday people go, oh, and I heard it. And I'm sitting there going, oh, don't be so stupid. That's why we're doing this.
So
what's
your
hold on a
theory?
second.
What's your theory
No,
about why?
no, hold on. What I hear is after these Siena polls come out, every time New York Times poll is, oh, well, everything that Joe Biden's done since the State of the Union address, all this money that he's put out, all of the campaigning is for naught. No, it's not. No, it's not. There's one poll that's wildly skewed every time.
Okay.
And it does shape, if it's a New York Times poll versus a Morning Con.
They're fucking. Like, that's obvious, right? Like, these two are fucking. Are they like husband and wife news reporters or something? And it's obvious because, like, they're married? Okay, yeah. I was about to say, like, I've never seen two people who are more obviously fucking in my life. Okay. Yeah, she's, like, basically leaning into him.
Consort poll, and the New York Times then amplifies it 15, 16, 17 times. It warps reality, and everybody responds to that in the media and in the political world.
So all I'd say about this is that I agree with you that the
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, they come off as cringe as fuck. They've been married for 10 years now? Ah, I see. Yeah, no, they're cringe as fuck, I'm not gonna lie. This guy doesn't really seem to grasp the concept of time passage and the fact that, like, who people would vote for on May 18th, 2024 does not matter anywhere near as much as who people are going to decide to vote for on election day. As it turns out, time is a thing that exists, and people change their opinions as time goes by. This guy seems upset that, like, the polling has changed.
problem to me, unless you want to suggest
guy.
you think there's a conspiracy at the Times about this, which
Their methodology is bizarre.
Well, but you're talking about
and Larry Sabato said this.
Right.
Walston said this.
Joe, you're saying something more than that, though. You're saying the New York Times is systematically putting these polls out in a way to try to amplify them to drive the news cycle.
Yes.
I am saying that. And I'm saying I'd like to know. I'm curious as a.
Kind of weird that a husband and wife can be coworkers, let alone pundits. I imagine that they were pundits, like, coworkers first and worked together for decades, and that happened. I doubt they, like, entered this space as, like, a couple. That seems unlikely. And that's typically frowned upon, really. Like, it's typically very frowned upon for coworkers to date and then get married, but it sometimes happens.
Someone who I understands your level of sophistication about reading the media, why you think that's true. What I'm trying to say is, I agree with you. The best bulwark against any polls, outliers, or anything else for people who are actually consumers of this information is to not let any given news outlet or any given poll.
Oh, they entered as a married couple. Interesting.
Shape your perception of the race unduly.
But John, that's not realistic, and I'll tell you why it's not realistic. Because, and I'll say to you, because I know people come up to you after every New York Times Siena poll comes out. It completely changes the political battlefield out there for about a week and a half. It distorts the questions that are asked of the White.
Okay. That's how the polling works. Time is going to pass. Things are going to switch around back and forth. We'll probably see a more Trump-leaning set of polls come out in the next couple months, especially if things escalate with Israel and Gaza, or if Iran continues to escalate tensions and America is forced to respond in any way militaristically. That'll definitely result in a little bit of a swing for Trump, because Americans respond literally like since ever since the Iraq War, it doesn't matter what reason, justification, or anything that there is. If an American president issues any form of military action in the Middle East, it is going to tank their approval ratings instantly, okay? Like, Americans do not put up for any form of military action in the Middle East anymore. It is a easy fucking approval rating killer, right? Anything could happen. And it honestly probably won't be Biden's fault.
White House. It distorts the questions that are asked of Donald Trump. It distorts all of the opinion. It distorts everything. And that keeps.
Yeah, even pulling you out will lose you approval. It's better to have just never been there and to not even mention any countries in the Middle East. Frankly, it's best if you can't even locate Iraq on a map, all right? If you're president and can't point to Syria on a map, then you can't airstrike it. So you're probably better. No, in all seriousness, we should not have abandoned the Kurds. We should have stayed in Syria. We really should have. That was a huge Trump L when it came to pulling us out of Syria. That was bad. We should have stayed and continued to support the Kurds. That was a big bad move by Trump. But unfortunately, it was popular. It was somewhat popular because most Americans did not know that what we were doing in Syria was not like what we were doing in Iraq or Iran or whatever, or against Iran or anything. Like we're there in Syria helping people actually though, and actually fighting terrorists who are actually hurting people. Like actually though, you know, like but for real this time though, guys. Like in Syria we were but for real this time though. You know what I mean? Like, no, this isn't another Afghanistan. No, in Syria, we're like the people of Syria want us there, like for real. Like, the people in Afghanistan kind of wanted us there, like the majority did, but not by a lot. But this time, like, in Syria, they really wanted our help, you know? Like, as much as Ukraine wants our help, you know? It's like, I could rant about how Americans have permanently been brain poisoned when it comes to all forms of war forever because of how bad Republicans handle U.S. conflict. But, yeah.
Keeps happening every month when this comes out. And then finally, about 2 weeks later, after the residue of the New York Times Siena poll leaves, people go, oh, I think Joe Biden's on a winning streak. And then 2 weeks later, it comes out again, and it's garbage. It's an outlier.
So this guy's arguing that Joe Biden, by default, is always doing bad, and any polls that come out saying he does well are an outlier. Not that maybe over time people's opinions flip-flop, like within a very small margin of favorability towards one candidate or the other based on the current political landscape, because that's how politics works. Does this guy think that like the Republicans naturally win every election and every Democrat win is a fluke? Or an outlier? Like, how does this guy think politics works? The deciding portion of Americans flip-flop. That is why we get Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Democrat, Republican, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat. Like, that's how, yeah, that, what do you mean?
And yes, the New York Times, when
he's saying the opposite? No, he's not. He's literally saying that, like, this is just a fluke.
they have all of these experts questioning the methodology, when they're calling like 20% of the people likely voters who have never voted before or didn't vote in the last two primaries, when they're even
well, a lot of those people are 18 years old too.
Quoting people,
many of them couldn't vote,
who said they're switching their vote from Joe Biden, who have never voted before. I'm sorry. The New York Times has to know what they're doing.
Did that guy forget that 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds exist? Did this guy forget that, like, it's been 4 years since the last election, and that means that, like, what, millions of people turned 18 in America, like, turned voting age in the last 4 years, who couldn't vote in the last election, but now can in this one? Like, is he forgetting that that's part of that stat, if not a large part of it? Like, what is he talking about? Is he just like... I get why people complain about MSNBC. They definitely got some cringe lords on there, for sure. Or regardless, if you enjoyed this video, please please consider leaving a like down below. It really helps the channel a lot. And don't forget to comment. I love reading your comments, and it boosts me in the algorithm. I love that engagement. It really does help a lot. YouTube, of course, boosts me when I get lots of engagement. Those are the likes, the comments, all that good stuff. And don't forget to sub and ring the bell icon so YouTube tells you when I go live or upload a new video, of course. And make sure to follow my social medias linked down below so people can, you can follow my social medias. You can see all my posts and stuff. And don't forget, if you want to support me financially so that I can afford to continue making lovely content for you guys, consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or supporting me financially through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, Patreon, or buying merch at the Streamlabs link down below. And if you want to join my fan Discord, which is the main hub of my community, the main hub of my fan base, I host watch parties, game events, and I do call-in streams there, as well as announcing all my new uploads and, streams. Consider joining the fan Discord. The link is down below. It's totally free. I want to see you guys there, and I hope to see you guys again. Hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.